Karen dumps full cart of groceries in aisle and screams at employees to clean it up. The store had become a war zone of overloaded carts, crying toddlers, and exhausted staff members trying to navigate the chaos without losing their tempers or their minds. Every aisle was clogged with people squeezing past each other, shouting across displays to family members, and clutching coupons as though they were golden tickets. The checkout line snaked so far down the front end of the store that customers had begun counting their place in line by referencing landmarks. We're just past the frozen peas. A father told his daughter, trying to make the wait sound like an adventure instead of a test of patience. Near Register 3, 17-year-old Marissa was ringing up groceries at a rapid but practiced pace, her arms moving in mechanical rhythm as she scanned, bagged, and offered a strained smile to each customer. Sweat had gathered at her brow, but she kept her ponytail tight and her composure tighter. Oscar, the janitor who'd been with the store since before half the employees had been born, moved through the aisles with a mop and a quiet resilience, already having cleaned up 2 soda spills, 1 broken pickle jar, and an unfortunate trail of grapes crushed underfoot like a crime scene. Meanwhile, Danielle, the 25-year-old assistant manager, was juggling a headset, a clipboard, and a pounding headache as she tried to coordinate restocking, customer complaints, and a backup plan for the missing deli worker who had called in sick 2 hours before their shift. She moved quickly, ducking between aisles like a general surveying a battlefield, issuing calm but firm instructions to her overwhelmed team. And then there was Karen. She had entered the store like a storm cloud rolling over a picnic. Bleach blonde bob perfectly styled, oversized sunglasses perched on her forehead despite being indoors, and a designer handbag slung over her shoulder like a weapon. She pushed her shopping cart with sharp, exaggerated jerks. Her lips were pressed into a scowl from the moment she walked in, as if the fluorescent lighting personally offended her. She scoffed at the produce section, loudly questioned why there were no organic avocados, and made it a point to sigh dramatically any time someone else's cart came too close to hers. As she moved through the store, Karen's complaints escalated with each step. "This place looks like it was ransacked," she muttered, yanking a dented can of soup from the shelf and tossing it into her cart. "Do you people ever restock? It's a holiday weekend. Don't you know how to run a business?" She barked at a teenage stock boy who was in the middle of stacking loaves of bread. He blinked, wide-eyed and silent, as Karen pushed past him with an annoyed grunt. By the time she reached the frozen food section, her cart was filled to the brim with carefully selected items, some double, some triple quantities of what seemed like a planned hoard. But as she rounded the corner and saw the checkout lines stretching past the snack aisle and wrapping around the soda display, her jaw clenched so hard her teeth nearly cracked. "You have got to be kidding me," she shouted, startling a toddler in a nearby cart. "What is this, the apocalypse? I don't have time for this mess." A few customers glanced in her direction, some with bemused expressions, others just trying to ignore her. But Karen wasn't one to let an audience go to waste. She turned sharply, nearly clipping an elderly man with her cart, and stormed past the registers. Marissa glanced up just in time to see the woman marching back toward the aisles, muttering curses under her breath. Danielle, standing near the customer service counter and adjusting her headset, noticed the disruption as well. Her stomach dropped slightly. She dealt with difficult customers before. This store was no stranger to drama. But there was something about Karen's body language, the storm brewing just behind her eyes, that made Danielle step off the counter and follow her at a distance. Karen, now fuming with indignation, found herself in the middle of aisle 8, boxed pasta on one side, canned soup on the other, where the foot traffic was dense and the space tight. Her cart now seemed like an affront to her dignity, a symbol of how long she'd waited and how little respect she felt she'd been given. Without warning and with a shrill grunt, she grabbed the front of the cart, yanked it to the side, and slammed it sideways into the shelves. Cans wobbled, customers gasped, and then chaos. With both hands, Karen shoved the overloaded cart forward, sending it crashing to the ground in a tangled mess of boxed crackers, frozen pies, and shattered jars. Glass cracked, soup splattered, An entire gallon of milk burst on impact, spreading in a foamy white puddle that seeped under customers' shoes. The sounds of groceries hitting the floor echoed like a thunderclap. A stunned silence followed, and then she screamed. "This is your mess now," she shouted, her finger jabbing toward the nearest employees, her voice cutting through the murmurs like a knife. "I'm not cleaning this up. I'm a PAYING customer. You work here. You do it." Her voice rose to a screech as people started pulling out phones, recording the scene in disbelief. Karen, undeterred, crossed her arms and stood over the mess like a self-appointed queen, daring anyone to challenge her. Danielle arrived seconds later, frozen momentarily by the sight. The aisle was wrecked. Groceries were scattered like debris after a storm, and Karen was standing proudly in the center of it. Marissa rushed over with wide eyes, a roll of paper towels in her hand, as if that would somehow help. Oscar appeared behind them with his mop bucket, his face a blank slate hiding what had to be a deep well of thoughts. Danielle took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Ma'am," she said, her voice low but firm, "you need to calm down." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," Karen snapped, turning on her like a viper. "I've been standing in line for 20 minutes because this place is run by amateurs, and I won't be treated like a second-class citizen. You people need to learn how to treat customers with respect." "We're doing our best," Danielle replied, still keeping her tone steady. "But destroying property and creating a safety hazard is not acceptable. We need you to leave the aisle so we can clean this up." Karen scoffed. "Good, clean it up. That's your job, not mine. I'm done shopping here anyway." With that, she stormed off toward the exit, her heels clicking loudly, leaving behind not only the wreckage of groceries, but the beginning of a viral moment no one in that store would forget. Danielle stood in the wreckage of aisle 8, the scent of sour milk already beginning to taint the air as it seeped into the floor tiles, mixing with the sharp tang of tomato sauce from a burst can and the earthy odor of wet cardboard. Customers still lingered nearby, some murmuring in disbelief, others watching silently with phones still aimed toward the mess like it was some absurd performance piece. Marissa's hands trembled slightly as she crouched down to pick up a crushed box of cereal, her eyes darting to Danielle for instruction, seeking something solid in the chaos. Oscar, ever the quiet force, had already begun deploying the yellow caution signs and dragging his mop across the initial tide of spilled liquid, his movements slow but methodical, like a man who'd done this too many times to be rattled. The silence was soon broken by a woman's voice near the front registers shouting, "I saw her do it on purpose. She just dumped it. It's all over TikTok already." Another voice chimed in with, "Wait, send me the link." Danielle's chest tightened. Her instincts kicked in, and she knew she had to act quickly to regain control of the situation before it spiraled further out of hand. She took a breath, nodded to Marissa, and said calmly, "Help Oscar with the cleanup. I'll be right back." Without waiting for a reply, she strode through the aisles, brushing past stunned onlookers and heading straight for the front doors, where the heavy glass panels had just finished swinging shut behind Karen's retreating figure. By the time Danielle stepped outside into the harsh glare of late afternoon sun, Karen was already halfway across the parking lot, her heels clicking against the pavement as she walked with theatrical pride toward a pristine white SUV. Danielle caught up to her just as she opened the driver's side door, calling out in a voice that was more professional than confrontational, "Ma'am, I need to speak with you before you leave." Karen paused, turned, and flashed a brittle smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you're following me now? How cute. I already said I was done shopping. You've got a mess to clean up, remember." Danielle stood firm, hands at her sides, not giving Karen the satisfaction of reacting. "I just want to inform you that we're documenting this incident, and our security footage, along with statements from multiple witnesses, will be sent to our corporate office. We'll be filing a formal report." Karen's smile evaporated, replaced by a look of irritated disbelief. "Excuse me, are you seriously trying to blame me for that mess? I'm a customer. Do you even understand what customer service means?" It means treating people with respect, Danielle replied coolly. Something you failed to show to our team and to the other shoppers in that store. Karen huffed, climbing into her car and slamming the door with a forceful thud. Whatever. Have fun with your little report. She reversed out of the parking spot with a screech and sped off, narrowly missing a shopping cart someone had abandoned beside a parking island. Danielle watched her go, the tension in her jaw slowly easing now that the woman was finally gone. But the damage was far from over. Back inside, the store was buzzing. The moment Danielle stepped back through the automatic doors, Marissa rushed over, whispering, "Danielle, it's already online. Look." She held out her phone, showing a TikTok video that had racked up over 10,000 views in under 20 minutes. The video showed the full scene, Karen wheeling her cart into the aisle, flipping it with force and screaming at the employees to clean it up. The caption read, "Karen loses it at Save More, dumps entire cart just to make a point." The comments were already pouring in, a mix of disbelief, outrage, and dark humor. #CartKaren had begun trending locally. Danielle stared at the screen for a moment, then gently pushed the phone back toward Marissa. "Send that to me. We'll need it." She walked back to aisle 8, where the mess was slowly transforming from disaster to memory. Oscar was wiping down the lower shelves with a rag, muttering about how people used to have manners. Marissa and another employee were bagging up ruined items and placing them into a disposal cart. The mood was tense but improving now that the cause of the chaos had left the building. Just as Danielle began documenting the incident on her tablet for internal records, the store's landline rang behind the customer service counter. She walked briskly to answer, half expecting it to be Karen already calling to complain. But instead, it was their regional manager, Carla, whose voice was tight with concern. "Danielle, I just saw the video going around. Are you okay? Is the team okay?" Danielle explained what had happened with precision and professionalism, detailing the cart flip, the mess, the screaming, the aftermath. Carla sighed on the other end, the sound of keyboard clicks in the background suggesting she was already filing a report of her own. "This is going to be a PR thing," she muttered. "Corporate communications is going to want a statement. Make sure you save all the footage. And Danielle, great job staying calm. Not everyone could have handled that without losing it." "Thank you," Danielle said, her voice finally softening, the weight of the afternoon beginning to settle onto her shoulders like lead. "We'll get everything cleaned up. We're already back on track." By the time the store started clearing out that evening, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the floor-to-ceiling windows at the front of the store. The crowds thinned, the lines shortened, and the noise dulled to a manageable level. A few regular customers stopped by to thank the staff for handling the earlier incident with such grace. One elderly woman patted Oscar on the back and said, "You're a saint, sweetheart. Don't let people like her get you down." Oscar just grunted and kept mopping. As the clock neared closing time, Marissa approached Danielle with a sheepish expression. "I've never seen anything like that before. I thought she was gonna hit someone." Danielle gave her a tired but warm smile. "You handled it really well. You stayed calm. That's what matters." She paused, then added, "People like her try to make their bad day everyone else's problem, but we don't let them win by stooping to their level." Marissa nodded, a little more confidence in her shoulders now. Danielle walked toward the back office, ready to begin writing her formal report. As she passed the break room, she overheard a group of employees gathered around a phone, laughing in disbelief as they watched the now viral video again. Someone commented, "She really said, 'This is your mess now,' like she was a queen or something." The laughter echoed down the hall, and Danielle allowed herself a small smile. In a day filled with frustration and messes both literal and emotional, a little laughter, especially the kind shared between exhausted coworkers, felt like a small but powerful victory. And though she didn't know it yet, the viral storm had only just begun. By Saturday morning, the video had exploded beyond anything Danielle or her team could have imagined. Overnight, it had spread like wildfire across TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook, racking up hundreds of thousands of views. The hashtags Cart Cairn, Grocery Meltdown, and This Is Your Mess Now were now trending not only locally but nationally. Influencers were stitching the original clip with exaggerated reactions. Comedians were parodying the scene with overturned laundry baskets and toy carts, and former retail workers across the country flooded the comments with shared trauma, solidarity, and horror stories of their own. The original video had been reposted to Instagram and YouTube, gaining millions of impressions. News blogs picked it up. Memes were generated. Even a few national media outlets had included it in their weekend viral news roundups, all over a cart flip in aisle 8. Danielle sat at her desk in the cramped back office of the store, hunched over the glow of her laptop screen. Her inbox was overflowing. Corporate had requested full surveillance footage, all employee statements, and her own written incident report, already filed the night before. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications from coworkers sending her links, screenshots, and updates from the viral saga. Some of the attention was amusing, even cathartic in a twisted way, but much of it had become a headache. The corporate PR team had sent her a templated response to offer customers who called or messaged about the event. They also reminded her, in not-so-subtle language, to refrain from commenting publicly on the matter until an official statement was released. Meanwhile, the store was already filling again. Saturday morning shoppers flooded in like clockwork, mothers with shopping lists, dads with carts full of snacks, teenagers sent on errand missions. But the tone today was different. More than a few customers stopped at the service counter or paused near the registers just to ask, "Is this where it happened?" Some were respectful, others nosy, and a handful treated the store like it was now some kind of tourist attraction. One woman even asked to take a picture with the sign above aisle 8. Oscar, who had arrived early as always, grumbled about how he'd cleaned up bigger messes than that one in his day, but seemed more amused than annoyed by the attention. Someone had printed a screenshot of Karen's moment, arms outstretched in mid-scream, groceries flying through the air, and taped it above the employee break room coffee maker with the words "Weekend Energy" scrawled beneath it. Danielle left it there for morale. Humor, it seemed, was the one thing that kept the whole staff from fraying at the edges. At around 10:15 a.m., Marissa came running from the front with a wild look in her eyes. "She's back," she hissed. "Karen, she just walked in like nothing happened." Danielle blinked. "You're kidding." "I wish I was," Marissa whispered, ducking slightly like she didn't want to be seen. "She's already yelling at the guy in produce about the bananas being too green." Danielle exhaled sharply, standing up from her chair. "Okay," she said, smoothing her shirt and slipping her name tag back on. "Let's go see what she wants this time." Sure enough, Karen was standing near the front of the store, holding a bunch of bananas in one hand and a bottle of kombucha in the other, berating a new stock boy who had clearly never encountered her before. "This store is a disgrace," she declared. "First, you ruined my holiday shopping yesterday, and now I have to dig through garbage just to find fruit that isn't bruised. I don't understand how you people still have jobs." Danielle approached with a calm professionalism that had become second nature by now. "Ma'am," she said, stepping between Karen and the stunned employee, "I need to speak with you in private." Karen gave her a once-over, clearly recognizing her but feigning ignorance. "Oh, it's you again. Look, I don't have time for lectures. I'm here to pick up a few things and I expect better treatment than I got yesterday. You should actually be apologizing to me." "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Danielle said evenly, ignoring the looks gathering around them. "Until further notice, you are not welcome in this store." Karen scoffed, offended by the suggestion. "On what grounds? I'm a paying customer. You can't just ban someone for being honest." "You destroyed property, endangered customers, verbally harassed my staff, and your behavior was documented on store cameras and witnessed by dozens of people. Our corporate office has been informed, and a formal letter will be mailed to your residence. For now, we reserve the right to deny service to anyone who creates a hostile or unsafe environment. You'll need to go." Karen's face twisted with indignation. "This is harassment. I'll sue this whole company. I was having a bad day and your employees provoked me. You'll hear from my lawyer." "You're free to contact anyone you like," Danielle said calmly, motioning to a nearby security guard who had just stepped in. "But if you don't leave the premises now, we'll have to involve the authorities." The security guard, a tall man named Marcus who had seen his fair share of unruly patrons, stepped beside Danielle and gave Karen a look that was firm but not threatening. Karen's eyes darted between them, scanning for an escape route that let her keep her pride. "This place is a dump anyway," she spat. "I'll never shop here again." "That's the idea," Danielle replied without missing a beat. Karen turned sharply and stormed out once again, her heels stabbing the floor with every indignant step. A few customers clapped quietly. One even cheered. A woman near the freezer aisle shouted, "Good riddance." And several employees couldn't help but smile as they watched the door finally close behind her. But this time, unlike yesterday, Karen didn't vanish quietly into the parking lot. No, within the hour she was online. On her personal Facebook page, now public due to her own oversight, she began posting videos of herself tearfully explaining how she had been victimized by woke teenagers and harassed by angry minimum wage workers who had manipulated a narrative against her. She claimed she had a medical condition, hinted at trauma, and called on her followers to boycott the store. But instead of support, the comment section erupted into chaos. People posted links to the original viral video, called out her hypocrisy, and screenshotted her own words from the footage. Some made jokes, others left harsh truths. She tried to delete comments and eventually shut the entire account down within the day. By afternoon, Danielle received a call from Carla again, her tone more relaxed this time. "Just got off a call with corporate," Carla said. "They're putting out a public statement. It'll go up on all official channels by tonight. You guys did everything right. The footage confirms everything. Karen's been permanently banned from all our locations nationwide." Danielle leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes for a moment. She could still smell the faintest trace of sour milk from yesterday clinging to the office carpet. But for the first time since the incident, she felt like things were finally moving toward resolution. And in the break room, taped under the weekend energy photo, someone had added a new note. "She came back. We survived. Again." By Sunday morning, the entire store was riding a strange wave of tension mixed with cautious optimism. The storm that had swept through their grocery aisles had shifted from physical chaos to digital aftermath. And now that corporate had officially stepped in, the employees found themselves the unlikely center of a story much bigger than their small-town grocery chain. The official statement had gone live across the company's social media channels and website late the night before, outlining the events captured on video, reaffirming the company's zero-tolerance policy for abusive customer behavior, and praising the staff for maintaining professionalism under pressure. Danielle had read the post 5 times before bed, not because she needed to, but because it felt surreal to see her team acknowledged in such a public and definitive way. The statement had been met with overwhelming support. Thousands of commenters applauded the company for defending its workers. Former and current retail employees flooded the comments with stories of their own battles with entitled customers, thanking the company for taking a stand. The overwhelming reaction wasn't just about Karen anymore. It had become a moment of catharsis for every underpaid, overworked employee who'd ever had to smile through a customer's tantrum. And though Karen had tried, briefly, to post another rant video on a different platform under a new account, the internet was swift and merciless. Users identified her almost immediately, responded with links to the original footage, and reported her attempts to spread misinformation. She deleted her second account by morning. Inside the store, customers arrived with a different energy. Many brought compliments for the staff. A few handed out small gift cards, baked goods, or simply said thank you. One elderly man brought in a tray of homemade muffins and said to Marissa, "For the young lady who didn't cry when that woman flipped out, You're a stronger girl than I would have been." Danielle watched all of this unfold with quiet pride. Despite how exhausting the past few days had been, something good was coming out of the madness. She could see it in the way the team held their heads a little higher, spoke to each other with more ease, and smiled more genuinely when customers approached. Oscar, who had become something of an unexpected internet celebrity thanks to his calm presence in the viral video, had received the most attention of all. A local news station had reached out to request an interview. A popular influencer had posted a reaction video calling him the most chill hero I've ever seen. Even more surprisingly, a well-meaning customer had started a GoFundMe in his name titled "Send Oscar on Vacation." And within 24 hours, it had raised over $15,000. Danielle had shown it to him on her phone that morning, and for the first time in years, Oscar had to sit down and remove his cap, rubbing his forehead in disbelief. "I ain't never asked for none of this," he mumbled, staring at the screen. "I just cleaned up some groceries." Danielle smiled. "You've cleaned up a lot more than that over the years. People are finally seeing it." Later that day, a local news crew arrived, requesting to film a segment in the store for the evening news. Carla had already approved it through corporate, and Danielle had briefed the team in advance. The crew set up near aisle 8, of course, and interviewed Marissa, Oscar, and Danielle on camera. They kept it light, focused on how the staff handled the situation, what it meant to feel supported by their company, and how the internet had turned a negative into something oddly positive. Danielle kept her answers professional and humble, choosing her words carefully, but speaking with the kind of calm strength she hadn't even realized she'd developed over the past few years. When the crew asked Oscar what he'd do with the money from the fundraiser, he shrugged and said, "Might finally go see my sister out in Arizona. Been promising her I visit for 15 years. Guess it's about time." The reporter grinned, thanking him for his service, and the cameraman caught a perfect shot of Oscar tipping his cap before heading back to the mop bucket, as if fame had no place interrupting his duties. By the time the segment aired that evening, the store was already settling back into something that resembled normal. But even in the familiar rhythms of beeped items and receipt paper curls, the atmosphere had changed. Customers smiled more. Employees felt seen. Danielle had caught herself laughing during a team huddle, something she hadn't done in weeks. It was as if the whole store had taken a collective breath after days of holding it. That night, Danielle sat alone in the office, scrolling through her messages. Among them was a surprising email from the head of corporate HR, not a reprimand but a commendation. They wanted to nominate her for a leadership award. Danielle stared at the message, blinking in disbelief. She wasn't used to recognition. Her job had always been about solving problems before anyone even noticed them. Being praised for doing her job felt odd but not unwelcome. She typed a quick reply thanking them and promising to stay in touch, then leaned back in her chair, letting the moment sink in. Meanwhile, the internet was still buzzing. Parody videos continued to pop up. One particularly popular TikTok showed a man in a Cairn wig dramatically flipping a cart full of rubber ducks, while a friend filmed it with slow-motion effects and opera music. Fan art began to circulate of Oscar with a mop like a sword, standing triumphantly over a mountain of fallen groceries. Someone even made a ringtone out of Cairn's infamous scream, "This is your mess now," and it was already being used as a joke alarm by teens on social media. Danielle laughed softly at that one. The absurdity of it all still struck her in waves. As she was about to shut down for the night, she heard a knock on the office door. Marissa peeked in, her eyes bright but tired. "Just wanted to say thanks," she said, "for standing up for us, for handling everything. I don't think I could have stayed calm if it were me in your shoes." Danielle stood, offering her a gentle nod. "You all handled it better than most adults would have. You're stronger than you know." Marissa smiled, then added, "Also, Oscar said to tell you he's taking next weekend off. He's looking at flights. We're gonna cover for him." Danielle nodded. "He's earned it." As the store darkened and the last of the cleanup crew punched out, Danielle walked through the quiet aisles one last time. Aisle 8, once a symbol of chaos and confrontation, now sat perfectly restocked, spotless, and unremarkable again. But she would always remember the ripple that had started there, the cart that tipped not just groceries but the balance of power, if only for a weekend. It had brought justice, laughter, a little fame, and a renewed sense of community. And somewhere out there, Cairn, the architect of her own downfall, was watching the world move on without her, while the people she tried to humiliate rose stronger than ever. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, and new frustrations, but for tonight they had peace. And for Danielle and her team, that was more than enough. Monday morning dawned with a gentle haze draped over the parking lot like a veil, the kind of calm that followed a storm too loud and too long. The discount grocery store, nestled among rows of small businesses and a dusty strip mall gym, looked like any other store on any other day. Its automatic doors whooshing open for early risers, its aisles slowly filling with the familiar hum of shopping carts and soft pop music piped through aged ceiling speakers. But beneath the surface of routine, there was a different energy pulsing through the store, something deeper than relief. It was pride, woven through every gesture, every glance exchanged between coworkers who had stood shoulder to shoulder through the absurd whirlwind of the past few days. Danielle arrived early, just as the bakery display lights flickered on and the scent of thawing cinnamon rolls began to waft through the entrance. She moved through the store with a calm, unhurried grace, greeting each team member with a quiet smile, asking how their weekends had ended, and listening to their answers without distraction. The chaos had passed, but the story still lingered, its echoes present in every conversation, every comment left on the latest viral stitch of the infamous Aisle 8 meltdown. Even now, new versions of the video were emerging online, remixes, animations, even a re-edit that turned the entire scene into a mock movie trailer complete with dramatic narration and orchestral swells. But here in the store, the joke had faded into something more meaningful. The event had bound the team in an unspoken way, solidifying what years of quiet grind and low pay rarely did: an identity, a shared triumph, a reminder that they mattered. Oscar arrived shortly after opening, though he wasn't scheduled to work. His usual work boots were replaced by loafers, and his mop was nowhere in sight. Instead, he carried a folded piece of paper and a thin envelope under his arm, and as he stepped through the front doors, a few customers recognized him and gave him a nod or a quiet word of thanks. He returned their greetings with a humble nod of his own and made his way toward Danielle, who was standing near the customer service counter double-checking a delivery invoice. She turned at the sound of his footsteps and blinked in surprise. "Oscar, you're not supposed to be in today." He smiled, soft but sure. "I know, just came to say goodbye for now." Danielle set her clipboard down, giving him her full attention. "You're really going?" "Flight's this afternoon," he said, holding up the envelope. "My sister's been texting me all weekend. She's got the guest room ready and everything. Said I better show up before she drives out here and drags me herself. That GoFundMe made it happen." He nodded. "More than enough. People just kept donating. Said it was for all the times they never got to stand up to someone like her. Said I reminded them of their grandpa or their first boss or the guy who always kept things running behind the scenes." He paused, then added with a chuckle, "Never thought I'd go viral for mopping up milk, but I guess it beats going viral for falling on ice." Danielle laughed with him, then stepped forward and pulled him into a brief but sincere hug. "You deserve every bit of this, Oscar. We're gonna miss you." "I'll be back," he said with a smile, stepping back. "Just talking a long break, got some catching up to do." Marissa came by moments later with a small envelope of her own, a card signed by every employee, filled with scribbled messages and inside jokes. Oscar took it with genuine gratitude, holding it like something fragile and rare. They watched him go, his steps slow but full of purpose, and when the doors closed behind him, the store didn't feel empty. It felt honored. Later that day, Danielle sat in the back office, her computer open to a new email from Carla at corporate. It was official. She'd been awarded the regional manager's commendation for leadership, with a bonus attached and a featured spotlight in the company's internal newsletter. But more important than any award was the final line of the email. You showed us what it means to stand for your people. You reminded us why leadership matters. She reread it once, then twice, then closed the laptop gently and leaned back in her chair, staring at the water-stained ceiling tile above her head. After everything, the yelling, the mess, the absurdity of internet fame, it came down to that, standing for her people. Outside the office, the store hummed on. The incident with Cairn had become part of the store's unspoken history, a legend already retold with varying degrees of exaggeration depending on who told it. New shoppers occasionally asked if that lady from the internet had really been here, and employees would exchange a look before responding with a practiced smirk and a simple, "Oh, she was real." The once dreaded aisle 8 had become a running joke, now informally known among staff as the throne room. A small laminated sign even hung discreetly near the top shelf. "Please do not dump carts here. Management has enough trauma." As the afternoon sun dipped lower, painting the linoleum floor in streaks of gold, Danielle stepped out from the back and into the front end, watching her team move with ease and confidence. Marissa chatted with a customer at checkout, handling a price check with quick fingers and a smile. The new stock boy, now much less terrified, was stacking apples with practiced care, glancing at the mirror above the produce section to admire his progress. Even the usual complaints of slow registers and crowded aisles were met with grace and patience. Danielle felt something inside her settle. For the first time in a long while, it wasn't about just making it to the next crisis or the next shipment or the next disgruntled customer. It was about growth, about resilience, about knowing that when tested, she and her team didn't just survive, they rose. And Cairn, the woman who had sparked the chaos, who had shouted, "This is your mess now," before flouncing into infamy, she had become a cautionary tale. Her actions had exposed not just her own entitlement, but had sparked a conversation far beyond the walls of the grocery store. Articles were being written. Think pieces emerged on the state of customer entitlement, the treatment of retail workers, the viral power of accountability. And somewhere, in a quiet apartment or behind another keyboard, Cairn was undoubtedly watching it all unfold, her face forever etched into the digital archives of internet justice. But inside the grocery store where it had all begun, life moved on. And in that quiet, steady momentum, where carts rolled, floors shined, and people greeted one another with newfound warmth, the team that endured it all proved something simple but profound. No matter how loud the chaos, dignity will always outlast the noise.